Imagine working 12-hour shifts saving lives, only to come home and be ambushed by your own parents. Papers on the table, threats in their voices, demanding your life savings for a crime you never even committed. That's exactly what happened to Nora Reed, until the truth exploded in their faces. And before I tell you how she uncovered an 11-year-old secret that turned her whole world upside down, let me ask you this. If you've ever dreamed of serving justice to the people who wronged you most, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned, because this is one of the most shocking family revenge stories you'll ever hear. Nora Reed was 29 years old, and her life revolved around two things: nursing shifts that drained her to the bone, and taking care of her younger sister Nina, who had been paralyzed since a tragic accident 11 years earlier. Most people saw Nora as strong, dependable, even selfless. But what they didn't know was that every ounce of her strength came from guilt. Guilt that had been planted in her heart by the very people who were supposed to protect her. It was late evening when she stumbled through her apartment door, still in her blue scrubs. The weight of a 12-hour hospital shift clung to her shoulders. Her legs ached, her eyes burned, but she ignored the exhaustion because Nina needed dinner. That was routine. Heat something from the freezer, make sure Nina had her medication, keep going until you collapse. But on this night, something was different. "Nora, can you come in here?" Her father's voice called from the dining room. It carried that strange, artificial calm Nora knew too well, the kind of calm he used right before delivering bad news. She sighed, slid frozen chicken into the microwave, and walked in. Her parents were sitting at the table, side by side, with a neat stack of papers laid out between them. Legal documents. Her stomach dropped. Her mother folded her hands like she was about to give a lecture. "Nora, it's time we make things official. Your sister needs more than just scraps of your time. She needs stability, commitment." Her father tapped the papers. "We need you to cash out your retirement savings and agree to pay $2,000 a month for Nina's care. From now on, no arguments." The words landed like a punch to the chest. Nora blinked. $2,000? A month? You can't be serious. I barely have enough to cover my own bills. Her father's eyes hardened. "Don't forget, Nora. You're responsible for what happened to Nina. You left her to catch the bus alone that morning. If you'd just walked her, if you hadn't been careless, she wouldn't be in a wheelchair." Her mother chimed in, her tone icy but rehearsed. "We've been patient for 11 years. We've carried the weight, but it's time you face your obligation. If you refuse, we'll have no choice but to tell your employer, your church, the entire community. Everyone will know you abandoned your sister." Nora felt her knees weaken. The room seemed to tilt. For over a decade, this was the story she'd lived by, that her mistake, her negligence, had stolen Nina's future. She had never questioned it. She had built her whole life around repayment. But this demand was suffocating. Something inside her, something buried deep under years of guilt, started whispering, "This isn't right." That night, long after her parents left with their unsigned documents, Nora sat in the dark of her tiny kitchen. Her hands shook as she held a glass of water. She thought about everything she'd given up, her dream of becoming an engineer, the inheritance her parents managed for Nina's care but never accounted for, the endless nights spent exhausted but pushing forward because she believed she owed it. And yet, it was never enough. She had nothing left to give, but they wanted more. Her mind raced. Who could she talk to? Who would even believe her? That's when a name floated into her memory like a lifeline: Evelyn Carter. Back in college, Evelyn had been the ambitious, sharp-witted girl in their dorm, always ready with advice and a plan. Now she was a lawyer. They hadn't spoken in years, but Nora still had her number saved. Her thumb hovered over the phone screen before she finally pressed call. "Hello, Evelyn, it's Nora. I need your help." The next day, Nora sat in Evelyn's office, surrounded by shelves stacked with law books and case files. The air smelled faintly of coffee and ink. Evelyn leaned forward, listening intently as Nora explained everything: the accident, the guilt, the constant demands, and now the legal papers. When Nora finished, Evelyn frowned. "Nora, have you ever actually seen the police report from your sister's accident?" Nora blinked, confused. "No. Why would I? My parents told me what happened, that Nina missed the bus, that I should have walked her." Her voice cracked. "That it was my fault." Evelyn sat back slowly. I'm not saying your parents lied, but something feels off. Let me request the official records. If nothing else, we'll know exactly what happened that day." Nora nodded, though her stomach twisted with dread. What if the report proved her parents right? What if she really was the cause? But a small ember of hope flickered inside her. For the first time in 11 years, someone was questioning the story. That night, Nora lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about Nina, about the sound of her parents' voices echoing blame again and again until it became her own inner voice. She had believed them without question. But now Evelyn was pulling at the thread, and Nora couldn't stop wondering, what if the story she'd lived under wasn't the truth? What if her entire life had been built on a lie? 2 days later, Evelyn called. Her voice was steady but charged with something that made Nora's skin prickle. "Nora, I have the police report. You'd better come in." Nora's heart thudded as she drove to Evelyn's office, her palms slick against the steering wheel. She kept repeating her parents' story in her head like a mantra. Nina missed the bus. Nora should have walked her. That's why she's paralyzed. If the report said the same thing, then it was all her fault. End of story. But when she sat down across from Evelyn and saw the manila folder on the desk, she knew something was different. Evelyn slid the report across the polished wood. "Nora, your parents didn't just bend the truth, they buried it." Nora's eyes darted to the first page. Her throat went dry as she read. The accident hadn't happened near a bus stop at all. It was miles away, on Highway 47. And Nina wasn't walking home. She was on the back of a motorcycle. Her stomach flipped. "A motorcycle?" "Yes," Evelyn said softly, "driven by a 17-year-old named Jason Miller. Witnesses said Nina was laughing when they sped through a yellow light. They collided with a delivery truck. The driver confirmed he saw them joyriding." Nora's hands trembled as she scanned the lines again, her pulse pounding in her ears. "But my parents said they told everyone she was waiting for the bus. That I should have..." Her voice cracked. "They told me it was my fault." Evelyn's gaze softened. "They lied, Nora. From the very first day." The office blurred around her. Memories swarmed, her father's stern lectures, her mother's disappointed sighs, the countless nights when she whispered apologies to a sleeping Nina. All of it, based on a lie. She slammed the folder shut, tears stinging her eyes. Why? Why would they do this to me? Evelyn folded her hands. Because guilt is control. You were young, you trusted them. They knew you'd accept the blame and let them shape your future around it. They needed someone to carry the burden. And you did. Nora shook her head in disbelief. They stole everything from me. My inheritance, my career, my life. Her voice cracked into a whisper. And Nina knew? Evelyn hesitated. I don't know, but we can find out. What I do know is this. Legally, you owe them nothing. Even if you had been negligent, the statute of limitations expired years ago. They have no case. Nora's chest tightened with a strange mix of rage and relief. She wasn't trapped anymore. The legal chains her parents had rattled over her head were fake. Over the next week, Evelyn went to work. She contacted Jason Miller, the boyfriend from the report. Nora nearly collapsed when Evelyn relayed his story. Jason admitted he'd been terrified at 17. Her parents cornered me in the hospital, said if I opened my mouth, they'd ruin my family. My parents begged me to keep quiet. I was just a kid. I didn't know what to do. Nora clenched her fists. Even after all these years, her parents had power over people through fear. But Jason wasn't the only piece of the puzzle. Evelyn also tracked down Aunt Laura, her mother's estranged sister. When Evelyn called her, Laura sighed heavily. I should have spoken up sooner. I remember standing in that hospital hallway when your parents said it. Nora's always been responsible. She'll accept it was her fault. I thought, maybe it was to protect Nina from scandal. But I knew even then it was wrong. Hearing that broke something inside Nora. Her parents had orchestrated every detail. Her guilt wasn't just a mistake, it was a strategy. Meanwhile, Evelyn dug into her parents' finances. What she found made Nora's stomach churn. Second mortgages, credit cards maxed out. Her father had quietly been unemployed for years, pretending to consult. Money that was supposed to be for Nina's medical care had been redirected to cover mortgage payments, car loans, and even vacations. Her parents weren't pushing her to pay for Nina out of love. They were drowning, and they were willing to drag her under with them. Evelyn tapped the spreadsheet with a manicured nail. This isn't just manipulation. It borders on financial exploitation. If they try to drag this into court, their own records could bury them. Nora's chest burned with fury. For 11 years, she had worked herself raw, living under a shadow of shame. And for what? So her parents could sit in their nice house sipping wine while she slaved away? That night, Nora sat alone in her apartment, staring at an old photo of her and Nina as children. She remembered the way they used to laugh together, sharing secrets late into the night. But now a chasm yawned between them. Did Nina know the truth all along? Was her silence complicity? Or was she just another victim of their parents' manipulation? The question gnawed at her. For the first time, her anger wasn't just at her parents. It was at Nina, too. But then another thought whispered. Maybe she was scared, just like Jason. Maybe she didn't have the strength to speak up. Either way, Nora knew one thing. She couldn't stay silent anymore. Evelyn leaned across her desk at their next meeting, her eyes gleaming with determination. Nora, you've been carrying their lie for 11 years. Now we carry the truth. With the police report, Jason's testimony, and Aunt Laura's statement, your parents don't stand a chance. We're not just going to say no. We're going to make sure everyone sees what they did. Nora inhaled sharply. For years, she'd been the dutiful daughter, the quiet sister, the guilty nurse who accepted her punishment. But now, she felt something awaken inside her. A fire she hadn't felt since before the accident. She looked Evelyn dead in the eye. Let's burn the lie to the ground. The stage was set. Nora had the truth, allies who believed her, and proof her parents couldn't ignore. For the first time in 11 years, she wasn't the victim. And soon, her parents would learn exactly what it felt like to be powerless. The confrontation happened on a Saturday. Nora had agreed to meet her parents at their home, the same house where every word of guilt had been hammered into her as a teenager. Walking up the driveway, she felt her pulse spike. Every step made her legs feel heavier, like the weight of the past was pressing down on her. Her mother opened the door, surprise flickering across her face. Nora, we weren't expecting you today. Nora held up the folder in her hands. We need to talk. They gathered in the living room. Her father leaned back in his recliner, arms crossed, his expression smug, as if he'd already won. So have you come to your senses? Ready to sign? Nora placed the folder on the coffee table and slid it toward them. No, I've come to end this. Her mother frowned, opening the folder. The color drained from her face as she scanned the first page. Where did you get this? The police report, Nora said coldly. The real one. The one you hid from me for 11 years. Her father's jaw tightened. Nora, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Her voice shook, but she didn't back down. Nina wasn't waiting for a bus. She was on Jason Miller's motorcycle. She chose to skip school. The accident wasn't my fault. And you knew. You both knew. Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. We did what we had to do. Nina was 14, sneaking off with some boy. Do you know what people would have said? The shame it would have brought this family? Her father leaned forward, eyes hard. We weren't about to let our daughter's reputation be destroyed. And besides, his voice dropped to a growl. You were always responsible. You should have been watching her. So what difference does it make? Nora's hands curled into fists. The difference is, you made me believe I ruined her life. You stole my future, my dreams, my money, all because you wanted control. You chained me with guilt that was never mine to carry. Her father slammed his fist on the armrest. We gave you direction. Without us, you'd be nothing. You think your fancy degree, your job, your apartment, all that is because of you? No, it's because we pushed you. Nora's voice cracked with fury. You didn't push me, you broke me. Silence hung heavy in the room. Her parents exchanged a glance, a silent communication of shared panic. They could see it, the power shift. Nora wasn't bowing her head anymore. She continued, her voice firm. I spoke with Jason. I spoke with Aunt Laura. They know the truth. And Evelyn, she's ready to take this public. The lies, the fraud, the money you stole that was meant for Nina's care. You didn't just manipulate me. You exploited her too. Her mother's face crumpled, the mask of control slipping. Nora, please. You don't understand how hard it's been for us. The bills, the stress, your father losing his job. Nora cut her off. And instead of owning your mistakes, you built your survival on my suffering. You used Nina as an excuse. You used me as a bank. And you want me to sign my life away? No. That ends now. She stood, her knees shaking but her resolve unshakable. For a moment, she looked around the living room. The framed family photos, the same beige carpet, the place where her childhood had ended the day of the accident. I'm done being your scapegoat, she said quietly. From now on, I live my life for me, not for your lies. Her father shot up from his chair, face red. If you walk out that door, don't you dare come back. You're nothing without us. Nora's lips curved into the faintest smile. That's where you're wrong. Without you, I'm finally free. And with that, she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in 11 years, the weight on her shoulders lifted. Fallout expands, investigations begin. The following weeks were a storm. Evelyn, along with Marcus Bennett, a journalist she brought onto the case, started piecing together a broader narrative of fraud and financial exploitation. Marcus was sharp, relentless. He combed through hospital bills, insurance claims, and financial statements. The evidence painted a damning picture. Nora's parents had siphoned thousands of dollars meant for Nina's care, funneling it into their mortgage and personal expenses. Marcus sat across from Nora in a coffee shop one afternoon, his notebook open. This isn't just a family drama, Nora. This is financial abuse. It could go public, front-page news. People need to see what they did. Nora sipped her coffee, her hands trembling. The thought of exposing her parents to the world was terrifying. But it was also justice. They've taken enough from me, she said quietly. If the truth ruins them, then so be it. But the one confrontation Nora still dreaded was with Nina herself. Late one evening, she sat on her couch, staring at her phone. Should she call? Should she go see her? Did Nina know the truth all these years? Her heart ached with conflicting emotions. Love for the sister she had cared for, rage at the silence that had allowed the lie to fester, and pity for the girl who had also been controlled by their parents. Finally, she whispered to herself, "We both deserve the truth." The lines had been drawn. Her parents, once the towering figures of authority in her life, now stood exposed as liars and manipulators. The legal and public fallout loomed on the horizon. But one more battle remained, the one with Nina. Would her sister stand with her? Or would the silence between them turn into an unbridgeable divide? Either way, Nora was ready. The girl who once carried everyone's guilt was gone. In her place stood a woman armed with truth, allies, and fire in her veins. And soon, her parents would learn that their lies had finally reached their end. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. My father's face drained of color. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for the paper, but I pulled it back before she could touch it. For 11 years, I said, my voice cutting through the tension like glass. You let me believe I ruined Nina's life. You made me her caretaker, her servant, her punching bag, and the whole time, you knew the truth. Nina's eyes flicked between us, wide, her lips parting. Mom, Dad? What is she talking about? That's when my father's mask slipped. His calm, authoritative tone vanished, replaced with raw panic. Nina, don't listen to her. She's twisting things. That night... But Nina wasn't a child anymore. She grabbed the paper out of my hands, scanning the words, her breaths quickening. Driver intoxicated. Passenger, minor. Passenger's sibling not present at scene. She looked up at me, tears brimming. Nora, you weren't even there. Her world shattered in real time. My mother whispered, "We did it for you. We needed to protect the family, the name." Protect the family? I laughed bitterly. Or protect yourselves from the shame of raising a daughter who made a mistake? You found it easier to sacrifice me, to brand me as the criminal, to make me atone for something I never did. For the first time, Nina saw the cracks in the perfect picture our parents painted. She turned on them, her voice sharp. You let me hate her. You poisoned me against my own sister. The dining room erupted into chaos, my parents begging, denying, trying to spin new lies. But it was too late. Because I wasn't done. From my bag, I pulled out a small device. I clicked it on. The red recording light blinked back at me. "Everything you've just said," I told them, my voice steady, "has been recorded. Every admission, every excuse. You wanted to protect your reputation? Let's see how the hospital board, your church friends, and the whole town feel when they hear the truth." My mother gasped. My father lunged for the device, but I stepped back. "Touch me, and this goes online tonight." For once in my life, I had the power. Nina placed her hand on my shoulder. Her voice cracked. "Nora, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I swallowed hard. Years of bitterness fought against the fragile relief blooming in my chest. "I know you didn't, but now you do. And you get to decide who you believe, me or them." Her tears fell fast as she whispered, "You, always you." The look on our parents' faces, that was the sweetest revenge I could have asked for. Because in that moment, they lost everything they'd built their lives on. Their control, their image, their perfect family. And I finally walked out of that house free. Not as their scapegoat, not as their burden, but as Nora Reed, the truth teller, the survivor, the sister who refused to stay silent anymore.